Usual, we begin with the number of the day. Today, that number is $218 billion. That, according to Brand Finance South Africa, is how much South Africa as a country is worth as a brand. So, and I'm quoting verbatim here, of Brand South Africa's Nation Brand Performance Monitoring shows the country's global valuation and ranking was affected by a weak GDP outlook, waning investor activity and confidence. So if we take a look at maybe the world's largest economy and that nation brand value, that would be $27 trillion, and that belongs to the United States. So let's continue talking about the value of the brand of a country. I'm joined in studio by Dr. Petrus De Kock. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News tonight. Is that a correct valuation of how much South Africa is worth as a brand?
I think that's quite accurate. It's measured by a combination of GDP, valuation of your top corporate brands in the country. So it gives you a bit of a picture on the, one would say, a market share that the country brand has in the global economy.
Mm-hmm. Talk to us about how Brand SA works in terms of selling South Africa as a country and how you do that with specific stakeholders in South Africa.
In South Africa, we work extensively with entities from our special economic zones to provincial governments, metros, and then a lot of national government entities. For example, we're on the organizing committee of the South African Investment Conference. There we work with DTI, Treasury, etc. Then externally, we also do a lot of work in partnership with either South African business or with our missions, our embassies abroad in countries. We also have a tremendous amount of partnerships with academic institutions, civil society organizations, and the purpose of that is we're a small organization, so we need bang for our buck. So we need an amplification effect. So our relationships with business, with academia, with governments, not just in South Africa, but also externally, is a critical factor for us to not just get the message across, but ultimately the difference is made in how you deal with your stakeholders, particularly when it comes to investment, trade relations, and so forth.
Okay. There's a Brand SA annual report, and when you look into that report, it says that load shedding, Eskom, state capture, GDP outlook, and land expropriation without compensation were issues that cause people uneasiness when it comes to South Africa. So how do you then sell a country that has those factors as well as crime and many other, we can't even keep the lights on, for instance. How do you sell the country without being dishonest?
I think a lot of indicators that we look at in our Nation Brand Performance Monitoring, you mentioned it at the beginning, we look at external instruments, competitiveness measures, ease of doing business measures, governance measures, where we find that, for example, on innovation and science and technology, South Africa, in an index called the Good Country Index, we rank 18th out of 163 countries. If you look at World Economic Forum Competitiveness Index, we rank 46th out of 140 countries for innovation capability. So what I'm trying to say is, yes, there are those challenges. We've also noted that in our annual report. However, when you look at the deeper capability of the country from an infrastructure, science and technology, even human resource point of view, we do find that South Africa has a very strong case to make. Yes, we are challenged with GDP. Yes, we are challenged with things like state capture and corruption. But we must always remember that the reputation of the nation is made not by what you say, but by what you do. So, for example, business rescue in South African Airways. It's a very controversial issue, but that's a practical step being taken to address a particular issue. So what I'm trying to say is that when we engage with the question of a reputation of the country, we always have to take a very broad view in terms of what's our national capabilities. As we speak, the President has taken the chairship of the African Union in a year of the operationalization of the Continental Free Trade Area. Now that in itself, if you look at South Africa as an investor in the Pan-African economy, we rank 5th in the world as a source of foreign direct investment in the African economy. So that means when you look at that capability of a nation in terms of capital, corporate expertise, even state-owned enterprises like a Transnet's activities on the continent, that plays a critical role in shaping the image of who we are. And we can also, based on that, then say, yes, we can be honest about the challenges that we face, but the picture of South Africa is much wider and broader than just that.
Talk to us about then the role of soft power or perceptions when it comes to managing South Africa and how that translates into very real data and the effect on South Africans' lives.
I think very briefly, the difference between hard and soft power. Hard power is your hard, say for example, your military capability. In the field of international relations, when you look into soft power, that is how you use other national capabilities to influence. So, for example, you could utilize your corporate footprints in other countries to influence. You can utilize your intellectual capability as a country to influence. You utilize your cultural stars, your sport. Those are all soft power attributes that you are known for. For example, South Africa is actually very well known as a sporting nation, in terms of our achievements in sport, but also as a host nation. Now, that in itself already gives us a lot of ammunition when we market the country, when we communicate about the country. So your soft power profile as a country, we find in the 21st century, soft power is increasingly important in an era of information warfare, fake news, etc., that you really need to be on guard in the first instance. But your soft power capability goes towards how do you utilize what you've got to influence the decisions or the mindset of others about particular issues in the world. There I can reference the BRICS, for example. If you look at the last decade of the BRICS as an organization, not only has it become more institutionalized, but through South Africa's role in the BRICS and our membership there, you definitely see South Africa is listened to in a different way as emerging power on the African continent because of our association with 42% of the world population in one organization, basically.
Thanks so much for your time this evening, Dr. Petrus De Kock. He's the GM of Research at Brand South Africa, joining me in studio there.